Do your designs look unrefined and raw? Like they were lacking a level of sophistication that you cannot figure out how to get to? In this tutorial, my friend, I'll be sharing with you 8 rules along with a 3-step process that you can apply starting today. If you listen carefully and follow through, I can guarantee you will start seeing instant results and you will be able to design more sophisticated and minimal websites. Let's go. Okay, let's get started right away. So like Dieter Ram said, we're gonna be learning how to apply the less but better principle to our websites. And I have identified at least 8 ways that it's possible to do just that. Let's start with number 1. Reduce visible elements. So Steve Krug said, "It doesn't matter how much times I have to click, as long as each click is a mindless, unambiguous choice." So don't be afraid to hide elements. Things like menu buttons, drop-downs, pop-ups, modals, info icons, entire pages, right? If you decide that there's something that deserves its own page, you could also do that. So let me show you one example. So here in my website, right, I had started like a section for testimonials, but what happened is that it started to become crowded, right? So instead of adding more and more and just pushing the content like further down the page, what I did is I included a testimonials page, right? So people can see, a few testimonials on the homepage, and then if they want to read more because they really want to see what other people are saying, they can go to the testimonials page. So that's what I mean with, hiding things within a page, for example. So that's one way that you can do it. The other thing that is really important to understand is that you can add white space, right? Sometimes we tend to think that we need to like pack everything into one module, right? You can always push the content further down the page and you can make users scroll. Users will scroll, so don't be afraid of pushing content down the page and include white space in between them. So for example, take a look at this, right? You see that there's quite a bit of white space here between the modules. It's not like I'm just using like 10 pixels. Here I'm probably using around 150, 160 pixels. So that's number 1. Number 2 is master a few typefaces. So most of my designs have 1 or 2 typefaces, and I usually use a collection of typefaces that I've been using throughout the last 12, 13 years of my career. I don't go crazy looking for the next type, especially when it comes to sans serif fonts, like for example Futura, right? Why try to find the new Futura when there's already such a beautiful typeface already designed and that has been improved throughout, I don't know, decades, right? Why bother looking for a new typeface that replaces Futura? I am a big fan of system fonts, like for example Arial, Helvetica, Times New Roman, right? Massimo Vignelli was one of the last modernists, and he was known for using a lot Helvetica. He actually had only 10 typefaces that he used in all of his projects, and he was a pretty high-profile designer. He designed for the New York subway. He designed the American Airlines logo, right? This one, and he used only 10 typefaces. So don't be afraid of using a few typefaces and master them. It takes time to master a typeface, and you won't be able to, get to know the typeface, get to know its white spaces, the kerning, the way it behaves on big sizes, the way it behaves on small sizes, the way it behaves with more contrast with a background, with less contrast, right? You won't be able to learn all of those details with each typeface if you're always changing typeface. If you want my list of typefaces, let me know in the comments and I can probably do like a resource for you so that you can take a look at my preferred typefaces. So if you want that, let me know in the comments below. But number 3 would be reduce typefaces in each project. So for example, I recommend using a maximum of 1 or 2 typefaces per project. You don't need more than that, trust me. So let me show you 3 examples, basically. So this is my website again. I use 2 typefaces, PP Hatton and Helvetica Neue. So this is Helvetica Neue. This texts here, the CTAs have Helvetica Neue. Little text like this as well. And then for all of the rest, right, all of the titles and everything else is in Hatton, PP Hatton. So 2 typefaces. Another website, it uses Universe for titles and secondary titles, and then it uses Accidents Grotesque for body copy. So you can see the pattern, right? I use for titles a display typeface. For body copy and smaller texts, I use another typeface. And usually I use classic typefaces like Accidents Grotesque, Futura, and Helvetica. Those are the main ones that I use. And another example is this one, where I use Clarendon for main titles and some smaller texts like this one. And then for body copy, I use Futura. So use few typefaces. Don't go crazy adding typefaces to the mix, because it's gonna just create a lot of chaos. Rule number 4, reduce type hierarchies. All of my websites, you will see that have the bare minimum amount of hierarchies that I need to make the identity work. I mostly use 3 hierarchies almost all of the times. Now, there might be some exceptions, like I could use up to 5 hierarchies, but most of the time you can do wonders with just 3 hierarchies in your type system. So, for example, in my main website, I use 1 hierarchy for the titles, 1 for the body copy, 1 for the CTAs. That's it. 3 hierarchies. You might say, oh, but this is another hierarchy. Yeah, you could say so. It's the same size, same weight, but it's uppercase and lowercase. Yeah, give and take could be another hierarchy. We could say it's 4, but that's it, right? It's not more than 4 hierarchies. Now in this website, I used 5 hierarchies. So H1, H2 with lowercase, H2 with uppercase, and then body copy, nothing else. Now I used, for some big text, I used what I call H0 because it's just ornamental and it's a huge size like this one. So I call it H0 because it's not like, it's more ornamental than functional. So in terms of titles and all of that, it's H1, H2, and you could say it's like H2 would be uppercase and H3 would be the same size, same weight, same typeface, same color, but with lowercase. So that's it, 4 hierarchies. Now this would be an example of what you have to avoid. If you take a look at this, you know, it's not that it looks terrible, but there's a lot of inconsistency here, and I'm going to show you right away. So title, 22 pixels. Second title, 18 pixels. Third title, 16 pixels. And body copy, 13 pixels. So we have 4 hierarchies here. Now, how can we simplify this? Well, the title here, this one and this one, are almost the same. Visually, there's not a huge jump between this hierarchy and this one. So the bottom line here is that if there's not a huge or clear jump between one hierarchy and the other one, you don't need it. So you can, for example, get rid of one of the 2 and just use the same size, or like that you use here, use it here as well. Now here, when it comes to this 2 sizes, it's 16 or almost 17 and 13. So again, it's not a huge jump, it's less than double. So when it's less than double, it's not a clear jump. It's almost never going to be a clear jump unless you're changing between uppercase and lowercase, which is what I do. So like you can see here, right? Here there's a there's a clear difference between this hierarchy and this one. Now it's the same size. I don't need to change the size because by changing the case, right, from lower to uppercase, that's enough of a jump for the eye to see the difference, okay? So you don't need to change the size as well. So you could simplify a lot this type system, and you could also increase the contrast between each hierarchy so that it's more noticeable, the change between one hierarchy and the other one. If the change is not noticeable, then it's not working well. By the way, I talk more about that in this video, so if you want, you can check that out. Now, number 5, reduce colors. Use one color or two at the maximum for type, and use one for accent. So for example, here I used two colors for this website. I used one that is the main color, right, of the brand, and then I used a darker color for body copy. Now, I use those two colors throughout the whole website. You don't need more than that. Literally, I just use for type just two colors. Same thing goes for this website. I mostly used 3 colors. So white, green, if you see the footer, you will see green, and I also used a gray for another hierarchy to just give a little separation. So for example, Cola's ad has white, but the body copy has like an off-white. It's arguably not necessary in this case, so you could also simplify it, but mostly I use 1 or 2 for text, and then I can use a third one for, you know, highlighting something, like for example the links here go with green, right, to highlight it. Now I also use 1 or 2 colors for the backgrounds, and I use 1 for accent. So again, in this website I used mainly green for backgrounds. I used this gray with a texture, dark gray, and I used black. So if you take a look at the website here, pkmental.com, you will see that there's those 3 main background colors. When I use 3 background colors, you want to use the one from those 3 colors that contrasts more with the background for CTAs, for example. So in this case, when there's an image in the background, I use green for the main CTA, but when green is the background color, I use black for the main CTAs. So you want to alternate in those cases, basically. But in this website, mostly CTAs will have a green background color to make the CTAs pop from the background. By the way, if you're enjoying this tutorial and you want to stay up to date with my latest videos covering advanced web design and freelancing skills, make sure to subscribe and enable notifications. Let's continue with rule number 6. Reduce graphic elements. Same concept of reducing applies to graphic elements. Now, are you using images? Are you using illustrations? Are you using icons? Are you using vectors? Are you using 3D? Are you using videos? Try to reduce the amount of graphic elements that you include in your identity. Usually 1 or 2 is enough. My go-to combo is usually images plus icons or vectors. And sometimes I throw some videos into that mix too, which kind of go hand in hand with images because they are moving images basically. Now, in this case, I used hand-drawn vectors. So you can see here, there's like a highlight in every title. There's also things like, you know, the title is repeated twice with a hand-drawn letter, and there's also like this tactic drawings that you will see throughout the page because he was a American football player. So I included those hand-drawn elements, I included images here, and I included just text. That's it. 3 things. Number 7. Reduce illustration styles. So for example, going back to this website, right? I used illustrations in this website. Now it's all hand drawn and it almost has the same stroke width. The only thing that doesn't match is the typography with the hand drawn things. But and I think that could be improved actually. But in general, right? I used a very basic flat type of hand-drawn illustration and I used it throughout the whole page. Now, in terms of illustration styles, you could think of things with texture. You could think of whether the illustration has perspective or is flat. You could think whether it has shadows or it doesn't have shadows, right? Whether it's detailed or it's a simple illustration, whether it's hand-drawn or it's vector-based, right? So all of these things matter, and you have to set rules for it so that you have one clear illustration style throughout your identity, and it creates consistency and a sense of sophistication. Rule number 8, reduce image treatments. So what type of lighting do you use for your images? Do your images have colors, or do they have black and white? Do they have sepia, right? What saturation do they have? What temperature are you using for your images, right? So try to come up with rules for image treatments so that, again, it's a very clear and sophisticated look. So let me show you again an example from this website, right? I used black and white images for the entire website. So if you take a look, you will see everything is black and white here. There's no colors. If we go to history, that still maintains, right? Black and white for this identity. On the contrary, right, for this website, we had a photographer that went to the place, to the factory, and took images and videos. So we were able to use colors for this because the images were all coming from the same photographer with the same camera, the same day, same lighting and type of vibe. So basically they all matched, right? Now in this case, in Elway, the assets, the image assets, were from all over the place, from all over the internet even. So we didn't have a consistency throughout the images, so I decided to use black and white to give consistency to all the images and have like a cohesive look. Now, in terms of the process, what I see is intermediate designers usually tend to focus on the module or component they are designing, and they don't think holistically, right, on the whole system. And that's when inconsistencies and exceptions are added, and they lead to a less sophisticated result. So being minimal requires discipline and a bit of a process. So I want to encourage you to try this 3-step process to apply these 8 rules to your websites. First, start by exploring the variables on the homepage. So let me show you here an example. Let's say that this is the homepage, right? You start by exploring the variables on the homepage. You maybe try with different, in this case, I had a slider, right? So you try with different slides, right? To see how they work. You're already setting the H1, the body copy, several, the background color. You're setting all of the 8 rules basically in this one piece, the hero of the homepage. So now the only thing you need to do is just carry out throughout the rest of the website those same decisions and maintain them. Once you start adding pages, right, things usually start to become a little bit inconsistent at the beginning. So what you want to do is make sure that you zoom out and you kind of audit everything that you've done, the rules that you've applied, and make sure that there's consistency throughout all of the pages and all of the modules. And then the third step is, if you find inconsistencies, make sure that you simplify the variables and create clear rules like we talked about. Go through the 8 rules that we talked about and create clear rules that you can apply to every element in the website, from every page down to every CTA, right? Make sure that everything is super consistent and has a clear rule, and it's not just a random, random size, random color, random background color, random image treatment. Make sure that there's a consistency and there's a rule for everything. Now, you might think this is a lot of work, and you're right. But once you learn this, right, this is one of the secrets that allows me to deliver high quality results in less time. I know what works, I know the rules that I need to follow, and I'm not creating variables and exceptions to every rule all the time. So I'm very consistent. I save a lot of time in every decision I make, and the results are much more minimal and sophisticated. The main goal of minimalist web design is to reduce and simplify your websites to the bare minimum. And in this digital era, it's easy to add, right? It's easy to add typefaces, it's easy to add colors, add hierarchies, add graphic elements. The tricky thing is that everything is at our disposal, right? So to really create minimal websites, you need to have a lot of discipline and self-constraint to reduce the excess and learn to do more with less. That's it, my friend. If you want to join thousands of students in learning 5 secrets to design beautiful websites with the Golden Canon Grid, I prepared a free Golden Canon Grid course for web designers. Check it out. The link is in the description. And if you're finding my content valuable, imagine learning all of these things alongside with other like-minded web designers who can inspire, encourage, and help you in your journey. The BONT Club is my signature mentorship program that goes beyond just taking your web design skills to the next level. It's about learning how to turn those skills into a freelance paycheck, giving you the freedom to do more of what you love. So if you're ready to join us, then click the link below to apply or check my website to learn more about it. The links are below. That's it for today's video. Hope you found it valuable, and as always, let's bridge the gap one pixel at a time. Check out this playlist next to keep learning about brand identity and web design.